Welcome. Just a reminder of the rules. Please keep your microphones off unless I ask you to join in the conversation by taking a question. Feel free to use your camera and leave the cameras on. It's always good to see people. And if you want to ask a question, then please put it into the chat, and then we'll pick it up when the time is right. You can also use the chat for putting in comments and exchanging information if you wish. So that's basically it. Most of you know the rules now anyway. Today we're going to talk about the road to CM25, the key priorities and opportunities for the industry. And I guess everyone understands the codes now, but CMIN stands for ESA Council of Ministers. So now you all do know. So in that respect, I'm very pleased to be joined in the cafe today by Simonetta Kelly. Simonetta is the Director of Earth Observation in ESA. And it's a particular pleasure because Simonetta is setting a record today by being our third person the first person to appear 3 times in the EOcafe. Let me get it right. So welcome, Simonetta. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Jeff, and thank you. Thank you for introducing me like this. Welcome and good afternoon to all the members here and the participants. It's really a pleasure to be the third time back in the EOcafe because it's organized with EARSC, and we have a very strong collaboration with EARSC overall at ESA in Earth Observation. So this is part of this collaboration, and I think it's a very good vehicle to somehow raise the awareness about the potential for the community here in terms of value-added sector. And of course, there's a lot that we can do in the implementation of our programs and a lot of perspectives coming up with what is happening in the preparation of the ministerial. The ministerial of ESA is every few years.
So we have 200 registered today, which shows the level of interest and the engagement we have. So that's very good. You joined the first time just before the last ministerial, CM25. So that was the first time you were in the EOcafe, and it was just before. And then you joined again afterwards to tell us about what had happened as a result of the CMIN. And that was on the 20th of April in 23. So it's great that you can come and join us again just before the next ministerial. So I sort of decoded earlier, but the ESA ministerial takes place roughly nominally, I should say, every 3 years. I think there's sometimes a perturbation to it if there's something specific, but generally it's a 3-year cycle. And it's where all the member states get together and discuss the program, and of course, importantly, the budgets, and agree to the budgets for the next year. I believe Canada also participate as a cooperating.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm not sure whether the other cooperating
associate member, yes, a cooperating state actually, and also the newcomers like Slovenia, who just joined us, the 23rd country in January this year. So we have more than last time this time.
So do the associate?
The ministerial will be hosted by Germany this time. Yeah. In Germany, end of November in Bremen.
And the associate members, do they join or not?
So basically they do. They all do, and they can be they're in this limbo status of becoming potentially full member, but where they have already the rights to attend, where for political reasons, of course, they're already part of the family, but not yet full speed into the contribution, which involve also contribution to the basic activities and things that it's really a burden for a country until you don't have the full capabilities at industrial level. That's how it's organized.
But any participation is then negotiated separately, or they can adhere to any of the programs?
We have specific arrangements with those countries with different level of, I would say, association and getting closer to ESA. We have what is called PECs agreements, then we have associate membership agreements, so different level of arrangements that let us, these countries, progressively step into the agency. And you can do already contributions to optional programs, and this is the case also for countries before they can become full member. But of course, the full-fledged I would say, cumbersome engagement comes when you become full member. It takes generally quite a few years. It took, for example, from 2008 and then 17 for the second step for Slovenia. And, you know, we have some which are in the process, like Cyprus. That's really the overall setup.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So a lot has happened since the last ministerial. Within the industry continues to develop, but on a wider perspective, 3 years ago, the world looked very different, and we have a number of issues there that I guess we'll maybe talk about. The geopolitical context has radically changed. But in the CM22, I think there was a budget of 2.7 billion was set. Future EO was the largest element of the program at around 40%, but at the time you spoke, it wasn't fully subscribed. I don't know if that was if it later fully subscribed or it remained undersubscribed.
It was not fully subscribed. You recall correctly, it was 79% at the time of a budget envelope, which was 1.8, and basically in addition to the initial contributions at the ministerial, we have had during this last 3 years additional funding from member states, recently, for example, from Denmark. So we've improved the level of percentage of funding, but we didn't get to the 100%.
No.
And this is an envelope program, so the countries in the meantime have given the priorities in terms of where they wanted us to spend the money and where actually the impact was on the underspending. So we have rationalized activity, prioritized activities. We've been able to go ahead on almost everything that were the core elements of the Explorer mission, the Harmony implementation, or things like the Scouts. We've been able to actually go ahead with 2 Scout missions. So the big core elements and flagship of that program are implemented and were implemented. And of course, we had to do some rationalization on some other activities and part of it.
So the other, you know, the second element was Copernicus, where the future missions were the next generation spacecraft. But maybe for some people, we should make the comment that most of Copernicus is funded out of a different mechanism through the European Commission, which has a different budget cycle, so is not in itself part of the CMIN, although of course it's an important element. There was then the EARSC.
It is part of the CMIN, Jeff, because this time, for example, we have a Copernicus on Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-3 next generation program proposal of the order of about 800 million euros, which is complementary funds to the Commission funds overall coming from the MFF. We do work together in a very, I would say, constructive and even if they face the decision-making process, but complementary funds where we have overall invested like 30 to 40% into the Copernicus overall. And of course, the Commission for the MFF funds grants the complementarity. We have different roles. And I think it's a very strong success story of real partnership there, but also of co-funding. So we're going to the ministerial with some additional elements of funding on Copernicus also this time. Well,
perhaps we'll come on to that in a moment. I mean, the other elements, there was the climate space, there was the InCubed, Digital Twin Earth, and Truths. And maybe looking back 3 years, or 3 years on from that point, maybe you could just talk about what was the most successful part coming out of CMIN22, and what did you take away from CMIN22? Before we get on to talk about CMIN.
Basically a success story, but if you want to put the second slide already, I have selected a few set of examples that can be relevant for the EARSC community. But just to give you overall numbers first, there's been an overall spending of 2.7 billion euros in EO, of course, at ESA. We have managed to spend actually all the budgets we had. There is a general underspending problem in ESA that was tackled last year. There was no underspending in Earth observation. We managed to actually spend all the budgets we had from member states. And another success element, we are very well on track in the implementation of all the programs decisions that were done at CIMIN, apart on EOLUS 2, where we had some issues in terms of delay and hiccups in terms of budget increase. So we're handling that at best. But for all the rest of the other elements, the Sentinel Next Generation, the digital twin, we actually even successfully launched the platform on Destiny, which is complementary to the digital twin research activities. And on Futurio, we've made all the contracts on Harmony, for example. We've signed contracts on NanoMaxSat for the Scout mission. So there was a lot of progress. But in terms of the EARSC community, I think what's important is also the numbers that we're getting from you when you do the studies for us. 24% of the worldwide market, it's European worldwide market in the value-added sector, and that's, I think, an important element, with a trend, which is a trend of about 10% increase per year. These are information elements that support also the decision-making process that goes with the ministerial. So if we go to the next slide, I wanted just to highlight in this context some example of success stories of activities that we've been doing in implementing the decision of the last ministerial. Good example is what we call information factories. This is something that was started with the Austrian Ministry, collecting 35 user requirements, as it is the Ministry for Climate, for Space, for Energy, from clear user communities in terms of having requirements for defining where would be the best location for wind energy facilities, how to improve the air quality of the cities, how to support the green transition overall, but also the carbon accounting, how to best use the transport tracks to reduce impact in terms of air quality. So that type of information factory that we've developed initially for Austria and with Austria, using the platform that we had previously developed for the COVID dashboard that we had done, is now, very successful story, I would say, in terms not just of value-added sector, in terms of reusing technologies that were already developed inside these EO programs, but also having new Kickstarter activities in the UK and in the Baltic region. If we go to the next one, I think what is also important to see, so you can develop, and we have developed as a success story through Futurio, methodologies, innovation technologies, valorization of data sets that we do have available, thank you to the free and open data policy. We have put those with contracts to industry, like you are here. Here's another example, for example, with GeoVille, products and services which are done on a demonstration case when they are done in Futurio, but which have potential of much wider commercial sector development. And here you have an example of an Incube story, which is not Futurio. It's one for boosting the traction of the agri-monitoring service. This is a domain, the agriculture one, where you need, of course, to support the common agriculture policy with the compliance monitoring tools, checking that the actual subsidies are spent correctly, but also having need to understand better hydrology of the terrain, food security. So you have a variety of products which are developed, demonstrated through our ESA program. And I think there are a variety of success stories inside Futurio, inside the Incube, that we can highlight from the last ministerial. Another one also coming from Incube is the story of Aurora Tech. This is a startup that really has been working with Incube, but on wildfire problems. It's a startup that didn't exist in 2017. I was in a Angels meeting yesterday where they presented the success story on not just developing satellites, but really satellites that are used for wildfire problems, and satellites that are now having a commercial value in terms of winning contracts on a commercial sector. So another success. If we go to the next one, I think I've selected just a few cases, but I think possibly relevant to this domain of EARSC, where we have work on through the digital twin of the Earth on the health, looking at air quality, looking at, these are models through digital twin where you use the data to see the potential evolutionary system in terms of not how it is only today, but how it would be in terms of temperature increase, the impact on the people, on the health, of course, here. And also here you see on the other side on the energy sector. All these projects in terms of implementation, there are hundreds. By the way, we signed last year 400 contracts in what we call Block 4 of Future-EO. It means in the value-added sector, there's been a lot of spending, creation of expertise, but also demonstration of not just the value of the products that you have, but really the exploitation of the data that come from our satellites mission. And this is all valorized through this. If we go to the next one, I think we have another example, which is the climate area. So in climate space, which is the project that does all the climate variables, the indicators to support the UNFCCC Convention on Variables. We have a lot of variables we are working on now, many, for example, on the Arctic with permafrost snow. You have here an example of the fire CCI, and that's again an area where we integrate data sets from different data sources and satellites, but we work with the science community and we work to really understand and create algorithms and model evolution using also the scientific expertise, not just the industrial one, to support all the climate challenges. So that's another area where you see the burned area mapping, very important. You've seen the recent events of Los Angeles fires. It's really important to have a dimension which is related to the science perspective of modeling of new research tools developed, but also the application or operational realm. All of that is really great potential for your sector. And I think the sector has overall demonstrated the validity of working with us in this domains, implementing the various programs of CIMI. And with this, I would close because I have so many examples. Maybe a last one I would like to mention, which is for me certainly another example of an interesting result, is the World Serial product. We have developed a product called World Serial at 10-meter resolution worldwide, which is used also widely by the economic sector to understand food security issue, agriculture and facility activities. And this World Serial has helped extremely on the, for example, production estimates in areas like Ukraine with the impact of the geopolitical context and the war. So just see the number of companies here, which I just mentioned for disaster resilience, for climate resilience, for agriculture. A lot of those come from really your community, and I think gives you the feeling of the variety and also the potential of opening new commercial market. We have a program that today is entering Future-EO, but it's called GDA, where we really work with world banks to promote the demonstration of the relevance of these projects using EO in areas outside Europe, in Africa, in Latin America. And this is a way where we promote the entry of the companies that are working on those projects into a new commercial sector, potentially in areas outside Europe. So with that, I think we can close on this part, and I hope I've given you a little bit of a glimpse of some of the really success stories that we have in the implementation of the program activities of CM25.
Definitely, and I mean GDA I see as a really good example of working together to get something off the ground. I see Steve Coulson has just joined us, who was
of course, he was at the start of that, so he knows.
It was one of the first actions I took when I took over the Secretary General of EARSC, was to go to the World Bank and support a meeting promoting to the World Bank back in 2011. So we go back some time, but that, I mean, what comes across there, I think, is a strong involvement of industry and a strong evolution of industry with new startups and new players coming in, and I think that is is a great success. Maybe that would be an interesting topic.
We will continue that, Jeff, in the Future-EO proposal. There is a part called Earth Action, where we're trying to rationalize all the efforts that we're doing in collaboration with the various banks, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and also integrating GDA into that remit, really having a possibility for companies, European companies, to enter new market, demonstrate new products, and then have opening of the commercial sector. And we have a very close collaboration now with DG IMPA,
Yeah.
the Director General of the Commission, and they delegate us funds for having a Copernicus regional hub in Latin America. Now we have funds to implement actions in Africa with the new African Space Agency, and we have also projects in the Philippines and in Southeast Asia with them. So these are really opening entry points for companies of Europe to work with us on these projects and really get perspectives, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, that seems like a very good transition into the next phase now, and what your ambitions are, what your expectations are around the CM25. Maybe I can throw that as a sort of an open topic to you, and we can carry on and discuss afterwards.
Yeah. So CM25. Of course, as you said, the world is quite different. So we have a different geopolitical context that we have to take into consideration. There's a war, which wasn't there at the last ministerial. There is also some threats. There is some needs in terms of increased extreme weather events happening. If you look at the World Economic Forum, they look at the increasingly impact that climate change is having on the economy, on the world, and also increased the number of extreme weather events overall in the world. There is an increased dimension of security and I would say geopolitical security also need. This is the general context. There is an increased private sector role overall in space, not just in Earth observation. And all of this we have to take into consideration. And then there's some, I would say, relevant reference context framing context at the European Union level, the competitive compass that was published by von der Leyen a few days ago on the need to support European competitiveness overall, the need to support innovation, the need to support the integration of key technologies like artificial intelligence. So we have to take all these elements into consideration when we prepare for CM25. So it will look different from CM22. It's not just the continuation. We have to adjust to these external elements. At the same time, we have to look at affordability of member states. So we have discussed very hard, and we're continuing these days with all member states, what is their affordability, what their ambition, their priorities, and how we can reflect those into the proposals. We've been working already a year or more on the proposal. So I think the set of proposals for Earth observation is well and solid and very advanced, but it will be turning into a DG overall ESA proposal that will be presented to member states in March. We have a seminar of the directors next week where we will sort of finalize that. But we have been given caps because of the affordability. So we have a cap in Earth observation where we have now 5 proposals on the table, not 7 like last time. We were told that the minister need to have a less number of proposals to decide among and understand better what they're investing in. So we've done this effort in Earth observation. We've integrated GDA and climate space into Future. It wasn't easy because you have to preserve the nature of those activities and the value of those activities, but at the same time try to make a bigger envelope, which has a challenge also to have a potential underfunding. And at the same time, what we have done is, according to what the ministers told us in Sevilla, we have really developed proposals that support the climate action. Okay, that was a very strong message at political level from Sevilla, and valorize the data sets that you have. This came out from Brussels last year. So we have turned those political instructions, I would say, from ESA member states into concrete proposals. And how have we done that? If we show the first slide, maybe Tanya, I could give you a feeling of what we have today proposing on the table. We have a set of proposals, which of course includes, as I said, Future. Future has 3 elements, 3 pillars. So we have tried there again, not just to integrate global development assistance in climate space, but also to reinforce some components and rationalize some things. Industry is always telling us that we have a problem with the need to share responsibility between ESA and institutions and agencies and industry, that they have too much risk and we need to take some part of the risk in terms of technology development. So an element of Future O will be about developing technologies, preparing for future missions, but really a reinforced element of developing technologies that will help a lot the de-risking of, or the shared de-risking of the industry activities. And this is also part of what industry, the big ones in particular, tell us that they have as a challenge of competitiveness, that sometimes they arrive with technologies that are not mature enough, not with a TRL level enough. And so we have reinforced this foundation element, which is developing the relevant EO technologies and preparing with studies for future mission. The second element is, of course, the development of some key missions, explore our science missions. We will shortlist between two. One is KITE, one is called Wyvern. In July, we will decide before the ministerial which one of the two will go ahead. Both are very relevant. Both are extremely interesting as missions which have a science remit, but in the domain really supporting climate and complementing meteorological missions. We have Harmony that we plan to complete. It's already well in development, but we still need some funding to complete Harmony. And we have a very important mission which is called NGGM, which is a gravity mission as a follow-on of Grace C and also Gauche missions in terms of previous expertise. It's a mission that has the ambition to look at the gravity, but also ocean circulation, hydrology of the terrain. And it's a mission that is really important, I would say, for Europe, but also in the science collaboration plans that we have with the US and with all the magic set up with NASA. We have two Scouts mission that we would like to further develop. This system of Scout mission as small scientific missions are very interesting for countries. We have a medium size, countries that want to acquire competence in capabilities in space. We have now a number of proposals which were submitted. We will shortlist 4 during the summertime, and then after the ministerial will downscale to 2. And we have a new concept, which is called stepping stones. This might be new for you. It's something which is the idea to develop new missions, a little bit what we do on Arctic weather satellites. So ESA would support the development of an initial mission with the plan to have a commercial perspective and a commercial sector out of that, either at the institutional level. I think there of the user requirements coming from the climate legislation implementation, the greenhouse gases, the land cover, the methane, or what we are working with DG Klima, but with ESA developing the first initial set of that. That's still under consolidation. We don't have all the member states supporting that concept quite a lot. And we hope to keep that in future, because I think it's a very interesting concept of having a new, I would say, faster way to implement missions that have potentially a commercial and institutional perspective. And then, of course, we have everything that's related to the mission management. There we have really rationalized the efforts. We don't plan to do any more mission management for a single mission, but we try to have a coherent multi-mission management approach and rationalize the operation costs associated to that. And of course, last but not least, still in Future is the part which I think is most relevant for the EARSC community. It's called Earth Action. And Earth Action is really everything that's related to the demonstration of the relevance of the EO for the value-added sector, for the service sector, for all the thematics which are agriculture, resilience, of course, sustainability, hydrology, but also support to demonstration project with insurance companies, or everything that's related to integration of global development assistance. So all what we do with Africa, and also all what we do on climate. And on climate, of course, we have the science element of climate space, but we also have a plan to somehow look at the decarbonization agenda, the role that industry play in terms of supporting that decarbonization. We have discussions ongoing with banks to see also how in the economic sector this decarbonization process can step up. And all of this is part of the action. We also have a very close collaboration set up since last year with DG Klima, and there we are really looking at how to support the implementation monitoring of the relevant climate legislation in the context of Earth Action. That is for Futurio. Futurio, it's an envelope program. It's a big one. It's a challenging one, but it's a fantastic program in terms of giving, you know, Earth Action. It's really what's touching your area. It's about almost 500 million in this element, which is a lot of money and a lot of opportunities for companies like yours and the ones of your sector, which I would like to highlight here. And I think is not yet fully understood by our member states. We're really doing a strong narrative to make them understand that. And I hope it's fully understood and fully subscribed at Ministerial. And then we have the other elements. We have Copernicus, we mentioned it. That's continuity of the activities on Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-3 next generation. It's already planned since years. It's nothing particularly new to mention, but it's really granting the continuity of data sets in the context of Copernicus, which is really a success story for Europe, but also with the open data policy for your sector, with the return on investment. I was just seeing this morning a new tool that we are developing with the Commission to present in an easy way the commercial relevance of Copernicus, but also the socioeconomic benefits of it, the support of the various EU policies. And it's fantastic to see that, you know, in an aggregated way and in a simple way. We'll make this tool available to all very soon. And I think it can only reinforce the messaging on what Copernicus is and how relevant it is. And then we have Incubed. Incubed is just a continuation of supporting good ideas, good startup, both in terms of upstream and downstream. I've showed you a few examples before. It's a scalable program, but it's an important one really to support commercialization that has provided really success stories. We launched 3 Incubed satellites in January this year. So we're really going ahead with that program that's helping companies to be able to somehow acquire the expertise, get access to venture capital, get access to the ESA expertise in terms of teaming up with other partners and opening markets. And then Truths. Truths is a program that is very strongly led by a UK contribution, but it's a program that's becoming more and more relevant for the wild community internationally, the CEOs community, but also the European one. It's a meteorology mission which will help to calibrate data sets from all satellite missions. So it's a program which is going ahead. I mean, we have been trying to Europeanize this program. We are still trying to do it because we want to have it really a European strong connotation, and we have a lot of industrial opportunities in countries like Spain, Germany, France, Italy, on top of the UK participation, and we're trying to really enlarge that footprint of Truths today. And then, last but not least, Digital Twin of the Earth. That's the program that was started at the last Ministerial. It's about using AI, HPC capabilities, and all what you have in terms of value data, in terms of big data, for doing the modeling, the evolutionary models of what the Earth would look like on different thematics. It can be on climate, it can be on Arctic region, it can be on the Mediterranean or the oceans. And this is really a program that with the R&D component will go ahead also at Ministerial, and it's complementary to a EU DigiConnect program called Destiny. And we have a single platform for both programs and a very strong collaboration with partners like EUMETSAT and ECMWF. And of course, this is, I think, a very new strategic development of our work in terms of really looking at how you can improve forecasting system, but not just forecasting the meteorological sense, but evolutionary systems related to different thematics that are relevant for science and the Earth in general. So better management in the end for decision makers. So I think I have another one afterwards, but this is really what I wanted to tell you about the Ministerial. We are consolidating this content, but it's almost done. We will continue to work with the association like EARSC to get your support in terms of understanding of the proposals, the potential of those proposals. We will have a meeting with industry in ESTEC where all directors of ESA will present the proposals for the Ministerial, and we will discuss with industries and companies what can be their direct opportunities in that context. And I think those are all opportunities that you should look at and really seek. And also we look for the support overall by the industrial sector in having the relay to the decision makers of your relevant countries in terms of supporting generally the sector of Earth observation, but generally also the proposals we have on the table to grant really good contributions. So that's a little bit the context in which we are operating. I think there's still a lot to do, but it's, you know, on the other side, I like to mention that Earth observation, we're not just preparing for ministerial, we are delivering on what we had in terms of decision at the last one. And we delivered 5 missions last year. They're all working fine. We had a FISA-2 with an AI system on board. We had a mission like Sentinel-2C, optical in Copernicus, 1C, radar in Copernicus, EarthCare, which now has data which are fully operational for the whole science community. All these missions were delivered on time with the yearly, you know, plans that we had last year. And this year we have quite a lot of missions. We have 4 in the Copernicus context to launch. We have biomass coming up, very important explorer mission in the future EO context. We have also METOP SG in August and MTG with a sounder on board. So it's a very heavy year, but also a very exciting one for this domain, providing really a lot of return on what the countries have decided in previous years in terms of really getting to the topical moment of launches. So we have to manage that on one side with the project team, prepare for a good ministerial, and make sure that everybody understands that you have return for the sector, you have good perspective. And one thing I'd like to also mention here, maybe there's a general, you know, crisis, as you said, Jeff, in the maybe telecom sector with people being fired somewhere or strong competition from Starlink. Earth observation is still a domain where Europe collectively, industries, ESA, EUMETSAT, the Commission, are having the best systems worldwide, are having the best sets of data, probably the biggest number of data. And I hope that we will together be able to continue to be at the forefront of this and just keep the level of engagement that we do have and that we need to preserve.
Thank you, Simona. That was a great overview, and I think it helps a lot, and I hope it will help the audience a lot in understanding the priorities and where you're going. You mentioned the commercial tool to promote the commercial aspects. I hope that's, I believe that's where we've also been supplying some information and helping to build a database around both the engagement with industry, the benefits to industry, and the benefits much more broadly.
Yeah, on commercial, maybe just another element to add on. We did a commercial forum on Earth observation at the end of November in Frankfurt. And there we presented really what we do in terms of ESA and EO to support the sector. And on one side, we really do anchor tenancy schemes like contributing missions, data buy. We work on the third-party mission scheme where we buy for research purposes data from the private sector. And that's, I think, an element of support of the commercial sector overall in EO. And then we have mechanisms like Incube, but it's not just the Incube with the expertise. I'm working really hard hand in hand with my colleague of industrial policy to try and streamline contractual processes. We always have time to contract monitored now these days in ESA. And I must say, there's been a strong improvement on that in the various elements of what we do. And this, I think, it's all quite relevant for the sector and for being competitive. We still have some hurdles. Just today, I was in an IP Rev process on Incube, and I was asking my DG to try and help us from top down, for example, to have some hurdles which are linked to support letters, which could eventually be speed up or, you know, adjusted to guarantee that when you need to support the commercial sector initiative, that you have really faster mechanism of implementation. And we're looking into that very, very carefully. We have a lot of
that's great. And if you'll excuse me, I would also say that I think EARSC has been pushing Joseph before yourself about some of these metrics and understanding what's going on and building a better picture of the contractual process and the whole process of leading to contract. the industry involvement in the next few years seems to be, if I dare say, even more important than ever, given again the geostrategic situation and the likely shift in emphasis in Europe and budgets in Europe. Industry has to be a very strong player and partner there for doing that. So given that sort of background, we've seen so much potential change just over the last few weeks. You've been spending a lot of effort over the past 12 months building this program and building understanding with the member states. How concerned are you that priorities might change and shift the programs given this geostrategic situation in Europe?
You talk about the US election, for example.
The outcome of the US election. Yeah.
Just as an example, we are looking carefully at the, I would say, evolutionary context in the US. I had yesterday a meeting with my counterpart at NASA, and I tell you, we have a very strong collaboration with NASA on our science since years, no matter if it's on climate action, climate variables, on calibration campaigns using urban mechanism of NASA and validating, the data on ground, on biomass, on, the tropical forest and all of that. And then we have also the science collaboration planned on the gravity mission. For the moment, I mean, the NASA administrator is not yet formally in place, so they don't have in structure indication of what would be the impact. So we are working in the assumptions, and I have agreed those with my NASA counterpart, that we go ahead with the discussions that we had planned mid of the year. We have every year very strong collaborative mechanism with working group, progress on activities. They will come to LPS in Vienna, and we continue the collaboration. Of course, they will reduce the participation in the coming weeks and months to international meetings, but they still will be there. And that's one thing. The second thing we're doing, we're trying to assess what could be the potential impact in our program proposal for the ministerial from this context, which is changing. And because the US is disengaging from international agreement like the climate convention or things like that. Okay, for the proposal we have on the table, frankly, not big impact, in the sense the only real program where we are somehow connected and collaborative and dependent is NGGM. And on NGGM, I must say there's no technological dependency, because it's from the start conceived as a science collaboration between the two systems, EARSC and NGGM. And this science collaboration, we have assessment from the science community in case the worst case scenario, they decide to cut something, it would have only a 5% reduction in terms of science impact. So overall, I would like to say we are assessing and trying to look at what could be the potential negative or worst scenario case and how it would impact our proposals. There's not huge impact on the proposals currently going for ministerial. Of course, for other areas like exploration, it might be, and we are actually looking, my colleagues are looking at that, might more impactful if they decide not to go to the moon anymore and go to Mars directly. So these are the areas where really I see potentially a stronger impact. In our field, in terms of program proposal for the ministerial, we're still working on it, but there's no direct, I would say, financial technological dependency on the proposals we have on the table. Okay,
that's reassuring, and we'll obviously follow closely as that evolves.
We'll continue to follow closely, because of course the collaboration can be impacted if they have budget cuts in terms of collaboration.
If people have questions, then please put them into the chat. There's starting to be one or two there. I have quite a few other things I want to address, but let me bring some of the audience into the discussion. Wolfhard, you were the first to put a question in there. It's quite a complex question. Can you try and summarize it very quickly?
I'll do my best, Jeff. Thank you very much for bringing me in. Hi, Simonetta.
Hi, hello. Nice to see
It
you.
was great to hear from you that you believe that we have the best technology in the world and also the best data in the world, and I couldn't agree more. I think we're really known for this. At the same time, looking at the changes in geopolitical, not only geopolitical situation, but also into the changes in international competition in our field, in Earth observation. I believe we can still improve to really play a major role in the world, not only vis-a-vis the US, but also in other markets and other regions, Latin America, Asia. I think we can improve in a couple of things, and that would be, in my mind, a better upscaling, both in terms of, for instance, the number of satellites. You mentioned Aurora Tech. They are coming up with a constellation, but only slowly. If you can speed this up, we would be more competitive. Same in the, should I say, throughput of data into information. They have large-scale processing and information generation, intelligence generation facilities. And the third would be to enable a more effective translation from the top science that we have into operational applications, into fully operational services, so that we can actually valorize the high level of science and high quality science that we have that is outstanding in the world. And my question in that case would be, or my comment would be, can we actually convince the member states in the upcoming ministerial that they do need to not only contribute more finances, but also to organize a better and unite a better support in this area? I think this is something that I also hear from other people at the industries.
Absolutely, I think you have a good point, and sometimes it's not just a matter of also increasing the money investment, but also rationalizing the efforts. One thing that is not maybe so evident to your sector is we've been working exactly in the direction that you were saying of trying to transfer the science activities into operational services. And one thing we also have done is to try and rationalize the efforts on the open science activities. They have complementary activities funded by Europe, Horizon Europe program, for example, on the Arctic or on climate. And those, it's not so evident to member states that we spend X money, and I can tell you the amounts, and they add on with another more than 100 million on the Horizon Europe, but we are de facto coordinating the effort to support those scientists that work on that thematic. And we do it seriously, trying to enhance the exploitation of use of EO data from European satellite system or private sector, and we do it together, and we do it with complementary activity. This is not so visible, and it's a huge effort that it's done and is taken into account in the proposals we're putting on the table. I think another thing which is also very strongly needed is the science flow to the operational. We have some good examples like SMOS becoming LSTM, or even EOLUS becoming EOLUS-2 with a different, evolution from a science mission into operational mission, or Crystal from a cryosat. But it's not enough. So there, I think we probably collectively need to valorize more the results of some research activities that we're doing, and give them more a perspective of having an operational or even commercial perspective. And any idea to improve that, I mean, we have done, that's exactly part of the, I would say, evolution that you have had with the content of this Earth Action component in Future. That's all what's about. And also the efforts in terms of overall budget, it's about 500 million. It's not minor. So it's really increasingly having an effort of ESA in that domain, but we need more. And any even recommendation or support from EARSC in that direction, I would welcome, or even support in terms of ideas of how to better implement the activities that we have proposed. That would be also extremely useful.
Thank you. Yeah, I fully agree. And this also contributes to any kind of dual use aspects. Because I mean, we can with relatively little budget, we can achieve a lot just by being better in organizing. Yeah.
You've just taken my next point.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. Sorry, Jeff.
I was going to ask Simonetta about her perspective on the Space for Security initiative.
Okay, that's the topic of the day. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And Galdig has a question on that. Okay. So
Yeah.
On the governmental service constellation, just to be very open and clear, we have made, on the request of the Commission 2 years ago, 2 VHR studies, which were managed by ESA, and we have shared those results with the Commission. But the Commission started the 2 studies on the governmental service. They did not involve ESA, in spite that we offered our support in terms of technical expertise. And that's where we are today. But there is a very strong recent evolution, which is a change of commissioner, and Kubilius, who is a commissioner with 10 responsibility list on defense and 5 on space, who says everywhere, because you've listened to him probably Munich Security Conference or the Journée Aérospatiale in Paris, that he wants space also in support of defense. And that's a clear political message that is coming out. He's also meeting quite regularly my DG. And I think there's going to be potentially some sort of more collaboration or more stronger collaboration. And in fact, there is an opening in terms of the current discussions we're having, and I'm involved in that with the Commission on potentially, you know, at the end of these initial 2 studies on the governmental constellation, involving ESA in the next steps of either extended studies or extra studies, or anyway the discussions they're having on the governmental service. We are very keen to do that. Why? Because I think ESA can help with its own expertise. We don't have a political mandate today, but we can help in terms of conceiving and eventually even implementing a space architecture segment that contributes with the private sector contribution, the data buy, but also rationalization of efforts from the national missions. We're currently developing on behalf of quite a number of national member states, the Greek, the Spanish, the Polish, and the Italian constellation, but we also have European capacity. So all of that, I think, is part of what we can contribute in terms of expertise, in terms of valorizing the setup of the infrastructure that we have in Europe collectively. And we are having discussions quite openly, and since recent times, it's with the Commission on how to. So I don't have the final reply because it's not there today, but this is where we stand.
The answers, even if you had the answer today, it will probably be different tomorrow. Such is the pace of change, and is absolutely necessary. I mean, despite the efforts of Copernicus have been fantastic and have really driven European forward, but the fragmentation is, in a sense, still there. And I think, although more budget, of course, will be needed and is to be welcome, but it's not just about budget, as Wolfhard was just saying. It's about organization around utilizing the existing.
And also Copernicus has been a very strong, despite it's called Copernicus for GMES before, strong civil connotation. So maybe if this starts, you might need a different governance scheme. So this is something that we need to look at. Because you don't want to put at risk a program which is so successful like Copernicus, but you need to have tackling some security requirements which potentially have a different governance scheme that you have of the current one today.
Absolutely, that would be very interesting. Peter, did that answer your question? If so, I will jump straight over to Adriano. About space data regulation and the discussions around that. Adriano? No, not coming in. Okay.
Here I am, sorry.
Okay.
Here I am. Yes, from the perspective of Earth observation companies generating services for the industry like energy, or companies interested in climate analysis through Earth observation. One of the main issues we have is that the regulations do not support actively the usage of such data. So normally it's seen like an add-on, what you could do on site. Of course, what we promote is the connection of the 2 activities as the activation of the full remote sensing concept. But actually, satellite capacities are quite outstanding today. We are seeing SAR satellite, for example, application for the energy networks, as well as for the carbon credits. So all these emerging markets are not considered because enough, I'd say, because especially in EU, satellites are seen like, okay, can use that, maybe if you can show me the advantage. But if you are forced to use that, it will be easier to generate demand, to generate new satellites, to generate all this competitive stuff required by the Draghi report as well. So, I mean, this could be a huge boost
Adriano,
for the
you're
next year.
absolutely right. We have a couple of good examples of success story. One is the Common Agriculture Policy. Since 2018, I mean, it has integrated, and we've been pushing for years before, the fact that you use on a sort of systematic mandatory base the EO data to support the implementation of this policy, either in terms of statistics, in terms of looking at subsidies use. So that's a domain where I think at least EO is well integrated in the policy implementation. There's some areas where it's not at all yet enough, or at least energy, for example, what you mentioned. With Clima, we're working now, as I said, and the legislation on Clima, we have an agreement to work and focus particularly on 3 areas. One of the 3 areas is greenhouse gases. The other one is the land use. The other one is the radiation and energy part. And those legislation will refer mandatory to the use for the implementation of the monitoring of EO. So that's another progress, still too little compared to the potential that EO has, because potentially EO will have to and can support environment, agriculture, external policy, all of them. And so it's a permanent lobbying process that we do, by the way, not alone. I think the Commission is trying to do it a lot with the entity that they have at GRC, which is really doing that, or with the Cassini program, or with the program of EUSPA. We have to do this all together, otherwise you won't get the market you need and they won't use the thing on a mandate. But already compared to the past, I think it's starting, you have some success stories that you didn't have a few years ago in terms of really using that as most integration of the implementation plans for the sectorial policy.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of the session, Simonetta. I didn't ask you how sharp we need to finish, but
I have another meeting coming up. I would like to
I'm sure you do.
but I
don't doubt
yes,
it.
unfortunately.
You already mentioned, in asking industry to come forward with ideas. What other specific things you would like from our sector, from the industry?
I think the collaboration with EARSC, you know better than me, but I really praise, and ESA is praising this collaboration that we have, which is a continuous one, with the reports you're doing, with participating to our industry fora, and with also giving us advice on the market trends, on the sector overall. So that is something where we value a lot the factual data, but also the trend data that they give us. We also valorize what you're doing in terms of having a sector which is not the one of building the satellites. It's a sector of the really, value-added service sector and product sector that speaks up. And it's not ESA saying, okay, what ESA is doing, what the proposal you're putting on the table are really relevant for us and for developing our commercial perspectives as well. These are the things from now until the ministerial, and always to do those will be super welcome. So having a common understanding, or maybe even a common narrative on Earth Action, would be extremely helpful to sell Futuro as an overall as a program, but also we could eventually share with you what is our narrative on Earth Action, because you can help us a lot to relay this message wherever you are and in your context. And that would be really helpful, I would say. And
okay, well, we'll certainly take that message and deliver what we can. We've come to 5 o'clock, and I imagine your next meeting is starting fairly quickly. So thank you again for joining us. Maybe we'll consider, maybe approach you to have another call after the ministerial, as we did last time, to talk about the results and any particular messages coming through. that will be in about a year's time, and goodness knows what the world will look like in a year's time. So
thank you so much already for the opportunity today, and I'm always available. We have contacts with you, with Emmanuel, with all the team, and really anytime you tell us, and we'll be in touch and try to help also and have this dialogue.
That's great. Thank you very much,
Yes.
and thank you to everyone for being with us today. Bye, Simone.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.